We're here with J.D. Collins, who last May was named the NCAA Coordinator of Basketball Officiating. He takes care of the NCAA officiating issues. But J.D., can you kind of explain exactly what that job entails?
Well, I think there's several parts to it. Number one, the person is responsible for the identification, selection, assignment, and advancement of tournament officials during the NCAA tournament. Number two, my job is to influence how the rules of the game are officiated during the year. In doing that, I'm required, and I feel it's very important to work with each coordinator of officials to make sure that the right guy is making the right call at the right time.
Well, this upcoming season, one of the biggest rule changes that fans are going to immediately notice is the change to the 30-second shot clock, but there's some other changes that are going to have a big impact on the game. And kind of a two-part question, maybe discuss some of those changes that'll have an impact on the game, and as far as like reducing the physical play, what are the challenges going forward to try to get those rules implemented and called during games?
That's a very good question, and the Rules Committee was very active this year. Most of their rule changes were directed at either increasing the pace of play or stopping or reducing the number of stoppages in play. So the rule changes themselves were directed at those two things. You mentioned the 30-second shot clock. From an officiating point of view, I think it's going to increase the pace of play, but I don't think it's going to change necessarily a lot about our officiating. From a physicality perspective, the Rules Committee was very strong in giving a directive to reduce the physicality of our game in order to create freedom of movement. At the end of the day, the perspective is that creating freedom of movement will increase scoring, make it a more flowing game, and it'll be easier for the players to play. Our job is 10-1-4 out front to address the impeding of a player trying to make a move. Cutters, they're getting chucked, they're getting bumped, they're getting held, and it might not seem like a very big hold or a big chuck over here on the left side, but when from a timing perspective they're supposed to be on the other side at a certain time, it really does impact. So 10-1-4, chucking cutters, physical play in the post. We have gotten to the point where it has gotten too aggressive, and we need to clean up that physicality so that when there is displacement happening, we're going to call a foul. And then the last item of interest is the screening. And our screens, if you look back to 1970 and look at the screens there, a screener came up, set a stationary screen. The offensive guy actually made a move to move that player into the screen. And we've gotten to the point where there's a significant amount of movement happening on screening, and the Rules Committee has dictated that we specifically address the word stationary. That may be the biggest change, although not a lot of people are paying attention to it, but the reality is our screeners need to be stationary. Now, because the Rules Committee made so many changes, that was probably too long for you, but it is reality.
There's a lot going on that need to be changed, so that's why it was a long answer. Now, Curtis Shaw, our Big 12 coordinator of men's basketball officiating, was involved with some of these, with the rules change discussions. Talk a little bit about impact and influence that he had as a former official to try to, help craft these new rules.
The Rules Committee is primarily made up of coaches. And so each year they invite myself as the national coordinator. They invite an active coordinator of officials, being Curtis Shaw this year, and then an active official. Mark Whitehead was the active official who also works in the Big 12. I think Curtis, Mark, and myself add to the equation to say, this is what we're hearing, this is what's hard for us, this is what we think needs to change, and also when they suggest a change, oh yeah, we can do that because it's really simple to make this adjustment, or no, that's almost virtually impossible for us to do. So I think it's the insight from being on the floor and officiating for a long number of years that really helps the equation.
That's J.D. Collins, the NCAA Coordinator of Men's Basketball Officiating. For the Big 12 Digital Network, I'm Wendell Barnhouse.